So how would you get money? How do you get into the deal flow? The deal flow is how do the people with good ideas and businesses meet up with the people that have money? And everyone seeks to be in the deal flow. Entrepreneurs seek to be there to be considered, and VCs seek to be in there so that they see good deals that are worthy of their investment. Due diligence is a term you always hear, and it means that during the selling process, if you will, or the courtship process, there are many things said or many things implied or assumed. Well, before the VC actually puts the money in the company, they need to validate those are real. So they will do a process called due diligence. You may have said that you have fantastic customers that all love you, and they may go along with that, the VCs. But they want to see before they fund their money, is it true that your customers all love you? So they'll say, we want to talk to your customers. Or you may assert that this prototype does an amazing thing. They may bring their engineers and their experts in to test whether the design and the performance of your machine, if there is such a machine, is as you state. Then there's legal representation that you say, we have a patent. Well, they'll validate that you have a valid patent, and the patent covers what you need to be covered to protect the intellectual property. So due diligence is a necessary stage, but it's irritating often because VCs are anxious to get their money out and the entrepreneurs are anxious to get the money. But to be prudent, the VC must do their due diligence to make sure they're making the right investment and they validated the key aspects of the information provided. All right, let's look at the criteria. How do the VCs select companies to fund? So there are generally five things that we will look at. The first one is firm requirements, then the concept, the team, the market, and then the plan. We'll look at each in a little bit more detail. Let's start with the firm requirements. You'll find that most VC firms have certain areas of expertise, and they use words. The whole VC industry has a bunch of lingo, and one of the key pieces of lingo that often surprises people is space. So you go to a cocktail party and they say, oh, what space are you in? I say, well, I'm here at this nice restaurant. Well, no, that's not what they mean by space. What they mean by space is what is the industry, the segment, the product or service that describes what you do. A VC firm might be experts in e-commerce, and that would be their space. Or they may be expert in medical technology or pharmaceuticals, and that's their space. It is important for these experts to stick to their space. Because if you are an expert in pharmaceuticals and someone comes to you with a new semiconductor manufacturing technology, you're way out of your area of expertise. And that makes you vulnerable to making a mistake if you were to fund some company in that area. So you'll find that VCs have their specific areas of expertise. It is true that as a VC grows, as their reputation and support grows, they will be tempted and will do additions to what they cover. So a company that is in semiconductors may move into software and into software as a service and into social media as a migration through the expansion of the areas they do. Now, they'll probably not do it with the same partners. They'll probably find new partners in their firms that have those specific expertise because, again, you have to really be state-of-the-art in your knowledge. The other criteria is your stage of development. Some VC firms are chartered and want to take high risks to chase the very big returns. Others want to have lower risks, and they may only fund companies that already have revenue, already have customers, and are starting to grow. Others may be later stage, where you're really ramping up for global expansion in preparation for an IPO or a large merger transaction. So companies have stages that they're in, and VC firms likewise match up with their investment objective and their appetite for risk. So that's what we call stage development. The third is location. Well, we find this that most VCs are in the West Coast and specifically in Silicon Valley. There is VC to be found throughout the United States and the world. It's just that there is a very noted high concentration in Silicon Valley. And next, we want to match it with a fund status. So we mentioned that there is a funding agreement between the VC firm and its partners. And what happens is there's a time limit or an estimated time of the life of that fund. So if you're early in the stage, they're more patient, if you will, to get an earlier stage investment. So as their fund matures, what we'll see is that they're going to find later and later stages. So they can kind of get to an answer, get to a harvest event in time to match their duration as a fund. And the other is rate of return. One of the main things is, can we make money? That's a core to all investments, but certainly had to put that here because they're going to look for big profit opportunities. Next is the concept. So these are specific. What have you identified as the need, the problem, the opportunity? And have you got some special approach, some innovation that can attack that in a way better than anyone else is attacking it right now? Furthermore, it makes your case stronger if you have defensibility, such as intellectual property, for example, patents. If you have a new technology to manufacture a semiconductor chip and you have a patented process to do that, well, that's going to provide economic performance advantages, and someone cannot just steal your technology, or at least not legally, and you have some time to take advantage of that superior technology in order to make some money. And then the competitive advantage, and I always add that it's now and later, because it's one thing to be innovative and to come up with something unique, but what if someone tries to copy you immediately? Can you defend your uniqueness and protect that market for yourself? So we want to see not only competitive advantage, but one that is sustainable and defensible. That is much harder, but obviously very important for you, the venture entrepreneur, and for the venture capital firm. Next, we look at the team. This is always a big part of it, and it's an assessment of a whole host of things. Some are individually for the people who are the founders. Some could be collectively, how you work together. We always look at obvious things like the background and experience for the individuals. They like to see it in the industry in which you're attacking, and that you're familiar with how it's going to be to run a startup. It's not the easiest thing to do. So people who have gone through it have a pattern recognition, a resilience, and a risk tolerance to make it through the difficulties that lie ahead. Then there's their capabilities. Are they good people managers? Are they good relationship managers? Are they strong in their persuasive abilities? And then also their commitment. How committed are they to this particular investment? They often will look at how much money do you have into it? How much reputation do you have at stake in this idea? So they'll look at things to look at that. Then we look at the specific ownership, the shares, the dollars you put in. Are you able to evaluate risk as a team? Because the business of venture is actually to find the biggest risk and get rid of them. It's actually a business of getting rid of risk, not taking risk. It's being prudent to endeavor to take the risk, but then manage those down as quickly as you can, so you have a higher probability of success. And then can you articulate what the business is about? Because not only must you articulate to investors, you're going to need to be very persuasive to other stakeholders like employees or engineers or funders or clients or customers or government officials, right? So your ability to persuade people that you have something worth supporting is an important skill. Then we'll look at the ability to sustain the effort. Do you have the resilience and the personal drive to bring it to completion? And then finally, they'll want to look at references. And as I may have mentioned in class, there are approaches to references that VCs use, which are quite unique. Some will call sneaky, but I just consider them unique and clever. If you gave as a reference somebody you work for at, say, Hewlett-Packard, they may call the person at the number you provided, or they may look at the description and then call somebody they know from Hewlett-Packard that worked with you or knew of you, and they will ask them for the reference. So what we call this is a backdoor reference or informal reference. And this is obviously more valuable to them because it's not handpicked by you. So it's always important to provide references, but it's also more important to make sure that in your conducting yourself as a professional and as a person in your community, that you have developed a reputation of getting things done and being someone worthy to support investment of millions of dollars under your care. The next criterion is the market, obviously. They want to look for a large market that is attractive. Usually attractive means it's growing, it's fragmented, there's no dominant incumbent that is in the industry. They'll look at the size, the technology that is at use or is coming in online, and looking at how well it is insulated from attack from new entrants or people that are in adjoining businesses that can enter. So these just assess the size, growth, and other characteristics of a market you want to attack as an investor. And finally, the business plan. So the business plan is essential for one reason, for one main reason, and that is that you know your business. It is not essential that you have a beautiful piece of paper that is a document or a beautiful PowerPoint that you can present. Those are the kind of the outcomes of the business plan. The key is, do you know what you're doing? Do you know how you're going to lead this charge into this new business? There are tools that we have seen and are quite effective and now commonly used. One is the business model canvas. There's different versions of the canvas. To me, those are variations of theme. The main thing is that it focuses you on customers. And that's the main thing that must happen, is that you must identify a real need and design a product or service that meets those needs, and you know how to sell it and what it's going to take to grow the business. So the beginnings of all business planning is actually marketing and sales and product development. Me being a finance guy, I kind of say that, oh, really it's not finance, but really it's not. We have to make sure there's really something there worth financing. And if it is worth financing, then it's our job to go get the money. Next is a strategy. It has to be kind of well articulated, has to make sense. The plan itself has elements of all the pieces: operating plan, logistics plan, the hiring plan through HR, the sales and marketing plan. All these things are essential pieces that comprise the overall business plan. And then, of course, we have financial models, because we need to capture the economics of our business so that we can explain the profitability and the capital requirements to make this thing happen. Now, the outcomes could be one of many, and this may seem a little strange, so a little bit advance warning. First, they may say, great plan, we want to lead the investment, which means they want to really drive this so that we get funded in the amount needed to launch the business or get to the next stage. Second is they say, well, I like the business, but I, for maybe capital reasons, don't invest that much money. So I will join as a co-investor in this plan, but we need to seek somebody else to be the lead person, but I will support you. That's still a positive outcome. The third is they refer you to people that are more appropriate. So for example, if you had gone to an expert in pharmaceuticals, but your product is actually more of a medical device, they might say, sounds very promising, let me refer you to people that are really more in your space, because it's not really in our space. And that is also a positive outcome, that they feel good enough to refer you to somebody they know. The last is that they deny, they say no. The thing that drives entrepreneurs crazy, however, is that they don't say anything. And often a VC will listen and then all of a sudden go radio silent, and you don't hear from them. The reason is that there may have been one or two fatal flaws that made them reluctant to fund you, but breakthroughs happen. What happened if there's an R&D breakthrough in your lab next week? All of a sudden that fatal flaw went away. So they almost don't want to say no, which sounds like definitive no as in never. But what they kind of mean is no, not now. And that's a hard answer to take as an entrepreneur. So we often have to try to determine what are the things necessary for that no or lukewarm response to become positive. We'll seek to rectify those problems so that we will be suitable to that investor, or if not, learn from that investor to be suitable for the next person we approach. So this is kind of how the funding dance, if you will, occurs.